Alright guys, welcome back to the garage. Today we're going to be replacing the cheap suspension on my 07 Civic Si. Alright guys, so today we're going to use our brand new Skunk2 sport struts, front and rear, as well as some lowering springs from Skunk2 as well. I'm not sponsored, this video isn't sponsored, but it's just something that I decided it's a little bit better than some of the cheaper stuff on the internet, and it's not as expensive as some of the really nice coilovers, so I felt for a very mild build something that I want to drive every day. I didn't need adjustable height, I didn't need adjustable damper, I just wanted something that I could put on there, it would sit nice. I looked at some pictures on the internet to kind of gauge the different drops from different springs, and this is one of the ones that I decided to go with. So this is what we're going with, Skunk2 struts and springs, and there was some extra stuff that I did have to get since I do have the max heating coilovers, which came on the car when I bought it. It's not the OE stuff, so there's a lot of stuff that I was missing, like a strut mount and some of the rubber boots, etc. So we'll go through that here in a bit. We'll start in the front and then we'll work our way back to the rear, but let's go ahead and take a look what we have that we can put on the car. All right guys, so everything I have here is what you're gonna need to assemble in the front. So you have your strut and your spring. You also have your rubber boots. I didn't have them because I don't have the OE stuff on my car, so I did have to order these. I also ordered a top mount, so this has a nice little bearing on it. It is Monroe. Make sure it is facing the right way. You don't want it this way, you want it this way so that it has the spring perch set facing the spring. So let's go ahead and take all this and we'll start getting into how to assemble everything. Alright guys, so the first thing we're going to need to do is to get these rubbers attached to the spring so that we can go ahead and compress the spring and then add it to the strut. So we'll start with the bottom. You can kind of tell which one's the bottom because if you look at the lettering is going to face up. So this will be your top and this will be your bottom. And then we'll go ahead and start here. So if you look at this bottom piece, you'll notice that one of the sides is closed off. The other side is open. So the closed off side will end up with the end of the spring here. So what you're going to want to do is stick the spring in and then rotate it around. If we look, there's a little bit of a window and that'll show you how far your spring is rotated in. And then we can go ahead and work the rest of it around and just seat it on there. So you'll notice that once it's in, it fits flush against this side. There's a little bit of a nub here which will locate the spring and then it wraps around. So now we'll move to the other side. The top is kind of the same but a little bit different. There's a little nub right here. This is the end, so your spring's going to terminate here. And then there's a little bit of a groove where the spring runs, and then a loop that holds it, and then another bit of a groove. So we're going to go ahead and sit this in here and then basically run the spring around until it meets the end, and it should be all attached. So you can see right here, it's all the way to the end. That's basically the way we want it. So the next thing we'll do is we'll compress the spring and then set it up with the strut, get the top mount on, and then once that's all put together, we can put together the other side and get everything into the car. Alright guys, I went ahead and set this up off camera, but you can see that I have spring compressors here. They are cheap Harbor Freight ones, but they do work alright. The only issue I have with these is they slide a little bit, especially because these springs are not very symmetrical. Obviously they're going to be, spiraled, but I believe they're progressive rates, so they're not the same coil all the way through. So I do have it set up. You can see that it's compressed because you can see how loose the top mount is. There is a 19 millimeter on top here, so you can see that. We're gonna go ahead and tighten this down all the way. The one thing you wanna make sure is that it sits all the way inside the spring so that when you tighten it down, it holds the spring where it's supposed to be. Make sure your bottom's aligned as well. Really what you wanna do is follow the way it came out of the car. I have mine set up kind of so the letters are in the front here, but ultimately when I let it go, I'm gonna make sure that it's not shifting or anything like that. If not, I'll compress it again and then rotate it some more. So let's go ahead and get this tight. We'll release the spring compressor, we'll make sure everything's fit. We'll get the second one done and then we'll go ahead and start taking things apart on the front of the car so we can get these in, and then we'll move our way to the back. Alright guys, so as we can see, everything is assembled now. So here's the front. You can see the letters all in line. Make sure everything is seated properly. You don't want any crazy gaps or anything where it looks like it's off. Our 19 millimeter is nice and tight. There is a hex right in the top of the strut, so if it is spinning on you, you can hold it. So usually what you do is you'll hold it with some sort of socket in here and then use the hex over it. Other than that, it should be ready to go. We'll get the other one just like this, and then we'll start taking apart the front of the car. All right, guys, so here we are under the hood. You will notice that the cowl does cover up where the strut tower would be. You can see this is the side of the strut tower here, so the strut top mount is somewhere under here. So we'll have to go ahead and take all of this cowling out. The biggest thing too is that we'll have to take, there is a little cover, but we'll have to take the wiper arms off on either side. And really the rest of it just kind of snaps together and snaps in. So go slow, take your time, be careful, and everything should come out relatively easy. If you're fighting it a little too much, it might be the wrong way. If there's anything that I come across over the course of this, I'll stop the video and go into more detail, but I think for now, it's pretty much just straightforward, and we're gonna wanna just pull everything out piece by piece. All right, guys, so with a little WD-40 and some mechanical advantage, I was able to get the wiper arms off. So now we can see that this is fully exposed. These should be either 14 or 15s. I think they're 15s on this strut top hat. So we'll go ahead and get these three loose. Same thing on the other side. This one does have adjustable camber, but I'm not so worried about this. This car is not gonna try to have camber. It's not gonna be stanced out. It's not gonna be going to the track or anything like that. So I'm not so worried about it, but this is the first step. We'll get the top of these loose, then we'll loosen our lug nuts, get the front in the air, and take out the rest of the strut. All right, guys, so here we are. We have the wheel off. So you'll notice there's two main bolts here on the bottom that hold the knuckle on, and then there's the three nuts on the top. Other than that, you got these couple of lines, and that's really all that's holding this coilover in. So let's go ahead and get these lines off, and then we'll get the bolts out. And then the top's already loose, so all we have to do is take those off, and that should be it. All right, so just a quick comparison. This is the new one and this is the old one. Make sure the bracketing's on the same side. But ultimately, yes, this is the front right. Front right came out here. So let's go ahead and get the new one in. Basically what I'll do is I'll hold it up, get these top three done. That should hang it. Maybe not tighten them all the way, but at least get them on so it holds up. Then get the two in the middle here, get everything tight, put the lines back on, and we'll go from there. All right, so we got everything in. It was a little bit of a struggle. I think my camera actually cut out in the middle, but basically I was able to bend this back, push down, and get everything lined up, get the bolts through, get them tight, got our lines mounted. This is just using a zip tie for now because I don't have a bolt that fits this. Should be fine, but it is just temporary. I'll get something for that later. But last thing we need to do here, get the wheel back on, get everything torqued, then we can start on the other side. All right, so here we are in the back. We have the shock here. As you can see, these ones were adjustable, and then we have the spring over here. So there's a bolt down here at the bottom. You can see it right here. That's gonna be the bottom of your shock, and then one at the top, and then you'll have the spring right here. So once we get this loose, we should be able to pry down on the control arms, get the spring out, everything will be out, and we'll go from there. All right, guys, so if you take a look at the top here, this happens to be an 18mm nut, which is kind of a weird size, but either way, I used a open box end wrench and held this, and then there's actually, if you can look really close, there's actually two flat sides, but this thing is all chewed up. Whoever did it first didn't have the right tools. They kind of just made it work. So I had to use like vice grips, or I actually used locking, I forget what they're called. It's like a Swedish locking plier thing. I don't know, it kind of looks like a pipe wrench and a vice grip and a channel lock put together. But either way, basically I held this, spun the nut, got it loose. It wasn't super tight, but I'm gonna leave this right here, and then we can go down and work on the bottom and we can pull it out. All right, so here's just a quick look at the new stuff versus the old stuff. So the new stuff definitely looks bigger, nicer, better. The only thing is I'll have to reuse some of these rubber pieces as well as the bushings, but for now that'll work. I'll probably, spoiler alert, they don't work. I will have to order new ones that are the OEM style, and I will have to wait a few weeks before I do get this actually finished. Place them in the future, but I don't have them, so I'm just gonna use these for now, and let's get this installed in the car. So we'll finish up this side and then we'll head over to the passenger side. All right guys, just wanted to take a second to go over a few things that I did. This is the passenger side. I've already finished the driver's side, so just a few things that I learned doing the other side and that I wanted to note. So one of the things I was actually waiting for was this bottom perch right here. The aftermarket stuff that I used did not utilize it. Same as the top. The top I have off here. It does sit up here. There is a clip that holds it in, but I've found it beneficial to put it inside the spring. That way when you're putting the spring in, since there's not a lot of clearance, it makes it just a little bit easier. So other than these two things, I ordered some upper bushings for the shocks, and the third thing I did was I actually moved the sway bar link. Is actually not the sway bar link, but the sway bar itself. I undid the bushing brackets on either side and let the sway bar just hang down so it's out of the way, just to give myself a little bit more clearance and allow the suspension to oscillate just a little bit more. So let's go ahead and get this wrapped up and we can finish this job. Alright guys, well I think I'm going to take this time to go ahead and wrap up this video. As you can see, the car is outside. I have had a chance to test drive it, and I have to say it's much improved from where it was. Taking off this old cheap aftermarket suspension and putting on something that's a lot closer to the OEM setup is definitely much improved. The ride quality, both for comfort and probably even performance. So definitely happy with what I have. That being said, I think there's some things I would have done differently. Going from an aftermarket setup to a setup that's a lot closer to OEM, I was missing a lot of stuff, so I spent a lot of time waiting for parts that I had to order, on top of just figuring out what the stuff that I didn't have was. So unfortunately that did take a long time, and it took me several weeks just to shoot this video and install the suspension and do all the things. A lot of that was just waiting for parts or waiting to have free time or something along those lines. So I think having a one-piece coilover set, well, at least one piece in the front and then, you know, two pieces in the rear, but it would have been just a more cohesive setup, and hopefully I would have had less things that I was missing. But either way, I'm happy with what I did and hope this helps anybody that's looking to go through the same thing. Other than that, drop me some comments if you see something that I'm doing well, or something that you'd like to see more of, or even something that you think I can improve on. I try to read all the comments, and I definitely like all the feedback. But other than that, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video.